And welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook, and on Twitch and YouTube, where PODcast is live every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, weather permitting, but we're all indoors, so the weather is never really a factor unless we start getting some like really hurricane kind of stuff, or we just, throw a coach out of a window or something, which, spoiler alert, if you listened to the podcast yesterday, and if you haven't, go back and listen to it. That talks about what happened, and now we're here to talk about the future. We're going to be talking about the future.
2000. Sorry.
The year 2000. We got to kind of update that. We're in.
That's the joke.
It's like party. Yeah, I know. Party like it's 1999, Jeremy. That is Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader at Detroit Online. I am Chris Perfett, the adequate host at Chris Perfett, Perfett. Yes, we are looking to the future on this podcast. We're going to give you a list cast, baby. We're going to give you a list cast who we are looking at in the coaching search. That's right. We got Jeremy to talk about coaching search this damn early.
I did it, guys. I did some research, and I'm looking forward to some head coaching searches.
The future
I'm trying to get myself excited. I know a lot of people think I'm a big curmudgeon after the Sheila Ford Hamp presser, but now that's behind me. I am ready to look at the future. No, not the draft. We're not talking about the draft. No. We need
baby
GM
steps.
Baby
Baby steps. We also have a mailbag, but I've completely done him a disservice. Our third man, yes, Ryan Matthews. At Ryan_POD. Ryan, welcome. And I feel like I should also say welcome back, because if you guys are watching on Twitch, we have a tradition of bringing pets onto the stream all the time. And I have nothing else to say, but the goose is loose.
Hey, Goose. Yeah, there you go, buddy. Yeah, he's here. His new favorite words are apple pie. They really get his ears a jumping.
Give him apple pie?
No, just letting him, know about the words apple pie apparently makes him a happy boy.
It's
kind of like hearing Matt Patricia is no longer the head coach of the Detroit Lions makes me a happy boy.
Yeah, like as J.R.R. Tolkien said that some of the pleasing words in the English language are cellar door. Matt Patricia fired is pleasing to me.
Has a ring to it.
It just rolls right off the tongue. It is audibly pleasing. So as I said, we've got a list cast coming up. So we're going to give you top 3 head coaching candidates for the Detroit Lions. I don't think we're there yet. I think next time, Jeremy, or maybe during the week, we're going to talk about general manager. That's a little harder to do. Yeah, and I feel like those are cool, but that's also not as sexy. And the NFL is a league where the coach has more press, has more importance than the general manager at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously GM has to come first. And either way, we're going to have plenty of time to discuss all this. And maybe during, the upcoming weeks, we'll have guests on that kind of have a general background on some of these guys and be able to interview them and get deep down. But for now, you're right. Head coaching is kind of the more sexy pick here. We'll get deep into those GM candidates either next week or during the week. Probably do a list cast of those as well. But I think we're all just maybe a little bit excited that the team is going to be taken in a different leadership direction, and so we wanted to jump on the head coaches.
Yeah, and real quick, just kind of final thoughts on Patricia kind of being out the door. We've kind of had some time to mull over it and anything. Any closing thoughts? Because I know, Jeremy, you kind of felt gloomy about the future, but for me, it's just I didn't get to talk much on that one about my opinions. But Brian, Jeremy, if you guys have anything else you want to add before we jump into the list cast.
I'd say you take the floor here if you feel like you need to jump in here real quick. I'm exhausted talking about Matt Patricia, to be honest. I feel like we spent all year just complaining about what Patricia was doing on Sunday, so I'm at peace there, I think.
Yeah, I think for me it's exhaustion. I mean elation through exhaustion. That it's like fine. It's like, once again, I already invoked J.R.R. Tolkien, so it is Frodo going, "It's done, it's finished." The gif of that. But at the end of the day, I was talking about this on the air. We hit it on in the podcast. I've never seen, Ryan, that many players savaging some players still in the league with other teams whose coaches probably don't like them doing this, but just absolutely savaging Matt Patricia out the door. You know, Ashawn Robinson talking about you were going to end my career. Now look at you kind of stuff. Darius Slay, even Kenny Galladay favoriting a few posts, which like I've never seen anything like that. And I've heard of dysfunctional locker rooms. I've heard of guys heading for the exits. That's not this. These guys aren't like running for the exits right now. It's just that a lot of them were pushed out of the exits. A lot of them were told, you know, you had a good culture here. And I want to do a really nerdy analogy. Like I took Taekwondo when I was young, and there was this one kid, like our first, I don't even want you to call it Taekwondo master, our first master, whatever, kind of a fun guy. You know, it was young kids just horsing around, just having fun. We had one kid there who was a little slower, but like still, you know, fun to be around. He would always come upstairs. There would be a training mat up against the wall. The first thing he would do is just run full speed into that thing and hit it, just to psych himself up. He's so happy to do Taekwondo. That guy, that master retired. We got a new one in, and he had a very stern look. And first thing that kid did was run into that mat, and the guy got pissed off, made the kid, like yelled at the kid, dressed him down for about 5 minutes, and then made him do about 20 push-ups. After about 3 weeks, I never saw that kid again. That's kind of, I feel like what we just kind of went through is like, we went from a guy who, yeah, he's maybe not the greatest coach in the world, but he got guys to play for him, to an a-hole. I'm sorry. And it sucks the life out of us too. We were not having fun talking about this team. No one was. So, I mean, I get it for the players. I think I'm happiest for the players because it feels like for them, their nightmare at least is a little bit over.
For sure.
Think so. You would think so. It's just the nightmare is not going to go away just because all of a sudden the Lions front office or I guess I should say the Lions leadership finally woke up and did something about this, because like you alluded to, Chris, already, I think the most damning thing is seeing players that are still within that locker room not having Matt Patricia's back, and then even kind of dancing on his grave a little bit. You know, from the liked posts that Kenny Galladay had to, you know, I mentioned this on our podcast yesterday, but the you know, the non-commitment or the
crickets.
Yeah. The lack of you know, the lack of getting behind Matt Patricia that Matthew Stafford had after the Thanksgiving Day game, you know, just saying, you know, that's not my decision. And that's really telling. That, I mean, he you know, for as much as we heard, Jeremy, from Matt Patricia's first season, him coming in and losing the locker room and then him trying to win it back, he never won it back.
Yeah, like we didn't hear a lot of
that were already on his side, essentially.
We didn't hear much from the Ricky Jean Francois of the world yesterday. I'll just say that. Like even the guys who were apparently in his quarter,
just no one. I mean, we are almost 30 hours since they fired Matt Patricia, and not a single Lions player has been like, man, it sucks that happened. Like, shouldn't have been on him. It was on us or something like. I mean, you hear that sort of stuff all the time, and I'm sure we will hear it, you know, starting on Monday when the player press conferences happen. But the fact that no one went out of their way is telling.
Yeah, as Joshua Mercer 7's pointing out in our Twitch chat, especially when Stafford advocated for Jim Bob Cooter, you know, after Cooter was out of town. And Zach Snyder in our chat again, I think he hits it up just straight. Like, Lions new culture, you got to treat men like men. This isn't the Vince Lombardi days are done. Like these guys know what they're doing. They're professionals at the end of the day. And that's the thing, is like there was nothing professional about what happened in Detroit. But I digress. We should do this cast.
Let's not talk about the not so fun anymore. Let's get fun.
Let's do
get wild
prospective stuff.
Yes,
let's get nuts.
Wildly speculate. This is basically the mock drafts of head coaches. Let's talk top 3 coaching candidates for each of us. I'm excited. Bring in the Listcast theme.
Do it.
We don't actually have it.
All right. I like it. Now, let's start. We have top 3 for each of us. We have top 3. We're going to keep it a little shorter, but I feel like it's technically we're doing a 5 in this way, in that we have 2 guys I think we all share, 2 guys that I think a lot of Lions fans are talking about that are not on our list. And I feel like, Jeremy, we should get to those guys first before we do our top 3.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, so I think the obvious one, I'm gonna slaughter the leanest hog here first before we get to the surprising pick. I think Jim Harbaugh is not on any of our lists. Spoiler alert. Put that fantasy down right now. That's not happening. Ryan, yeah.
I don't need to explain myself, right? Like I know what Michigan football is at right now. I don't know what happened. Like someone's making a joke that they're happy to see the brights in my eyes again because of how miserable this season has been. What happened to the brights in his eyes? What happened to the energetic head coach that was doing all sorts of fun stuff, both on the field and off the field? Jim Harbaugh is a shell of his former self, and I don't want anything to do with that. Period.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that for anybody who is holding out hope that he could reconjure up the magic that he had when he was with the San Francisco 49ers, you really to get this franchise headed in the right direction, you want to roll those dice. You want to roll those dice on a Jim Harbaugh retread in Detroit. And let's be honest, if Jim Harbaugh is going to be successful anywhere, he's gonna reroute from Michigan, hit up some smaller school and try to rebuild and go back that way. I can't see him making the jump to the NFL again and failing. No.
I actually have it on good authority that, if he is going to get jettisoned and if he does do this whole NFL comeback, and this is maybe good news for Lions fans if you're not a Harbaugh fan, I've heard that his dream destination would be the Chicago Bears.
Yes. Go.
Perfect.
Go forth, young man.
You know what? I am all for Jim Harbaugh going back into the NFL. Let the record show that I have stricken everything I just said 15 seconds ago. I would love for him to have a place in Hallis Hall.
I mean, he's spent the past, 5-6 years struggling to find a quarterback at Michigan. Struggle all you want in Chicago, too. They're having fun with that.
Here's the other thing, too, and this is what kills me here, because I know, someone will say, oh, it's just recruiting. It wasn't just recruiting there. And the thing that kills it for me is that several things. First off, I've heard from some former players who went to go and interview with the 49ers when he was there, who were thinking about his free agents coming there. And they would share stories about how they'd meet Harbaugh and it was a massive turnoff. They wanted nothing to do with that. So, I get it. We've kind of internalized, oh, Harbaugh, he's so quirky. That's not always a positive. That kind of crazy does turn a lot of people off. And again, these guys are professionals. Football is their job. They want to do their job. They don't want to deal with a guy who's flying off the handles sometimes. And the other thing too is I feel like we've given him a pass on how it ended with San Francisco. I feel like history has placed all of that blame on how it fell apart on Trent Baalke and Jed York. And I contend there was more than just those guys who were the assholes in the room. Harbaugh absolutely had to tango there to make that relationship fall apart.
That's probably true.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh is a psychopath. I don't want anything to do with him.
All right, now the other guy, which I think is going to the needle is going to scratch on the record here. I feel like so. I'm bracing for our live audiences when we say this. Eric Bieniemy is not on our list of head coaches.
Nope. I'm sorry. I can't separate the man from Andy Reid at this point. It feels kind of like the offensive version of hiring Matt Patricia, where you're just like, Andy Reid is the guy who's succeeded everywhere he's went. Eric Bieniemy is the guy who's kind of feels like he's riding on the coattails of him and one Patrick Mahomes. And the Andy Reid coaching tree has certainly been better than the Bill Belichick one, but it hasn't been perfect. Matt Nagy hasn't been perfect in Chicago. And so I don't know. It's not a strong feeling against him. He's probably in my top 10, but I like my top 3 guys a lot better than I like Eric Bieniemy.
Ryan, your take on Bieniemy?
With Bieniemy, I think I echo a lot of the sentiment that Jeremy just laid out. You're worried about whether or not you're getting a guy who just had the luxury of having, the best quarterback in football, and creative, offensive, creative genius in Andy Reid to kind of run the show. So I don't know if I'm so totally out on Bieniemy. It's just I wouldn't be very excited if he was the hire.
Yeah, and I echo on all of that. I only want Bieniemy if he's bringing Mahomes with him, I think is the thing. But there's some stuff besides just his coaching pedigree that this is me kind of my gut is nodding a little bit as I try to say this, but like there's red flags in the background of Bieniemy. And I get it, it's in the past, but we just got done with a coach who had a credible sexual assault allegation in his past, who came in defiant, who apparently the Lions didn't pick up on that on their radar, even though it was in the public record and they didn't do a background check or something. That we just dealt with that. And that kind of throws a lot of shade on it. I mean, you can go look up there's several. I can't say a lot of the stuff. I got some stuff off the record from some of my people I know, and like I sound like a jackwagon just saying it like that. But I'm sorry, there's a lot of red flags in Bieniemy's past. This guy has DUIs on his record. He was banned from Colorado's campus for a few years, and he was tied to a awful like University of Colorado scandal where there was recruiting allegations, the recruiting staff, which Bieniemy spearheaded, using, the Colorado Buffaloes using alcohol and sex to lure in recruits, sexual assault rife on the campus. And he was there in the middle of all of that. And I'm sorry, like a lot of that got swept under the rug. We don't know what happened, but when there's smoke, there's fire. And honestly, even if all of that is bubkiss, I still want a guy who's clean coming in. You need a high character guy to clean up what just happened here after Matt Patricia. And if any of that is in your past, I'm sorry. That doesn't mean that you can just keep rolling forward. I'm not saying you have to lose your job or whatever, but at the same time, that also means I don't need to be comfortable with you as a candidate for this new job.
Fair enough.
That's what scares me. That's what scares me the most about Bieniemy. Not even all the offensive stuff. It's just literally all that other stuff. Like I posted a bunch of articles out there, but you can go back there. It's all in the past there. It's there's a lot.
Well, I can agree with you from this standpoint, Chris. I think the Lions have to do their due diligence, and they have to actually like vet all sources and make sure that they're hiring a high character guy.
Yes.
Because you can't have the same thing that happened with Matt Patricia happen again. Because, I mean, for as bad as that looked for Rod Wood, who for some reason on Twitter has all of a sudden garnered a faction that defends him for some reason.
I don't get it.
I mean, let's not remember that Rod Wood was the one also heading up the Matt Patricia hire. So,
yeah. All right. I think we've gone a little long here, so I'm going to take we're early. So I'm going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll do our top three. So we're into the list cast. We told you the two who are out. Now stick around for the three who are in. And honestly, it's not going to be the same three. I think all of us, we shared our lists to each other. We usually don't do that, but there's a lot of diversity here. So there's a lot of guys out there. So, I mean, we're not shorting out anything by taking away Harbaugh or Bieniemy. There's a lot of good guys out there that I can see taking this Lions job. Stick around. We'll be right back on the Pride of Detroit POD Okay. We have any alerts or anything?
Yes. Nick started donating bits, and there he goes again. He's up to 425 bits.
I think we've gotten 3 Goose cameo requests and now a Zazu request as well. So it's now Dogcast.
Really quick. Thank you for the 425 bits, Nick. I can't have the, we've gotten a lot of complaints, especially on YouTube, about some of the alerts kind of drowning out our noise. So I can't do text to speech during these. We'll do those during the Man Sim and kind of less strict text to speech or podcast streams, whatever. But like those are for more fun streams where we don't want people to like be listening to a podcast and all of a sudden it's just horns going off constantly.
Goose's grandmother is here to pick him up, so I want everybody to wave bye to Goose and let him out of the door.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, at least we got to see him. I hope he's doing well. He looks sleepy.
Please let me see let me see all of the Goose emotes that all of our subscribers have right now on Twitch.
Goose,
Flood
hey,
our chat, please.
you're a celebrity.
He doesn't want to move.
Unamused.
He feels
He doesn't want to get those big floppy ears.
While we wait, let's run through some, like, a bunch of you are talking about Robert Saleh. I promise we're going to talk about him. Don't worry.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Lions' new culture should treat men like men and emphasize getting and keeping good players. Yeah, that would be a nice change of pace, 100%.
Yeah, the amazing idea of treating these guys like a professional workplace where everyone has respect because they are all professionals.
Brennan does bring up a good point. I know Josian Anderson did talk to Adrian Peterson, and he said something positive about Matt Patricia. I don't remember.
Cool, Adrian.
What the full post is.
With all due respect, Adrian Peterson doesn't move my needle at all.
Let me see if I can find the quote just to be thorough here.
Zeus, can you stop trying to bet on sports without at least first talking to Bovada King 69? I see your message in the Discord, Zeus. I know what you've been up to.
All right. Here's Peterson's quote. It's a tough one. I honestly feel like a lot of it has to do with the players not executing. I thought he was a great coach. Just wish we could have won for him. So kind of that same thing I was talking about that we didn't hear. He was the one guy that we did hear from, I guess.
That kind of feels like the rehearsed, unrehearsed, the coach just got his ass canned kind of speech there, to be honest. But.
And, I mean, he also wasn't there from the beginning and didn't see, like, him tear everything down before he managed to not build himself up.
That's the same thing with Reggie Ragland, too, right? Like, I mean, he's a guy who wasn't here at the genesis of Matt Patricia either, so...
Did every Detroit team change their front office? So I mean, we've got Troy Weaver. I don't know what did the Red Wings change it recently, Jeremy?
Yeah,
I'm not.
They hired Steve Yzerman.
That's right.
Ever heard of him?
No, I knew they hired Yzerman, but I thought he was in a president role. He wasn't like.
He's general manager.
That's still Is he general manager now? Okay, I saw him when they hired him as like a president. I didn't realize moved to manager. I think Tigers. I mean, it's still Al Avila running the show, correct?
Yep, but a new manager,
I guess. But he's been how long has Al Avila been in the front office? I feel like it's been at least 5 years now.
No, he's been there a while, but I mean they got a new like coach, like manager.
No, I know they got a new manager. Manager doesn't for baseball for me. Manager doesn't really move the needle. The manager is a scapegoat that we yell at when you go to the wrong reliever.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was ready to move on. I feel like we're playing.
Me too.
We're teasing our chat and our listeners a little. We're 20 minutes into the podcast of our
they're getting
list cast of top 3 candidates, and we have talked about
I'm
0.
Sorry, I've screwed up. I screwed up. We should have started with that first instead of the guys who are not.
It's all good.
All right. Let's do it then, shall we? Sorry, Ryan, what did you have anything to say on baseball first before we
and
the Tigers first?
Work, we'll get into that, by the way.
Baseball sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Baseball sucks. Sorry.
Jesus.
I don't actually. It's boring. It's boring.
Fan of a dead, dying sport on ice that people don't. Your kids won't even know what ice is.
Yeah, roller hockey.
I would watch a roller hockey. I would watch the National Roller Hockey League. I would do that. All right. Okay, enough horsing around. Welcome back to the Pride of Detroit POD cast. Our Twitch chat is bringing out the torches because we spent so long there, and I don't even think we spent that long there, but they want to hear the 3 names. Everyone wants to hear their 3 names. Everyone's pounding the table going, listcast, coach. The attendant's pounding it. Everyone's pounding it. It's like teeth, but coach. They want to hear the coaches. So how do we want to start this? I do not have mine listed 1 to 3. I have them in specific categories because I don't really want to give these a particular order. But if you guys want to go 1 to 3, by all means, let's start with Ryan. Who is your 3rd / any other category you want?
Okay, my third guy. Unfortunately, he just lost a semi shootout with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's the offensive coordinator on the other side of the ball, Byron Leftwich. All right, let me sell you on Byron Leftwich. Right, I mean, has cut his teeth in the league. I mean, this isn't his first gig. Quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator with Arizona, and then moved over to Tampa Bay. It's not really his fault that Tom Brady has a noodle for an arm at this point in his career, but I think that Tampa Bay does some really interesting things on offense. And what I like about the Leftwich hire is that you get a young coach who is offensive minded. And I don't feel like this is really a knee-jerk reaction in the opposite direction of the Matt Patricia hire, but I just like the idea of a young offensive minded coach who I mean played in the league, quarterback, has respect of players, and I'm in on Byron Leftwich. I mean that is a hire, and that's where like my list kind of starts, is that like number 3 is a guy that if they hired him, like I would be happy and I'd be excited about it.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't think Tampa Bay really moves the needle for me, but I mean that's because it's Tampa Bay. I don't think it's like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Jeremy's shaking his head.
I can't get behind Byron Leftwich right now. I feel like their offense is coming under a lot of well-deserved criticism right now. They got all these weapons. They got Tom Brady, and I know he doesn't have the strength of his arm, but he's still got the brain of Tom Brady, which is pretty darn good. And that offense is just not clicking like it should be. And I don't know. Maybe he's kind of a bun in the oven, not quite ready to be a head coach yet. But I'm not ready for him to be a head coach, and I don't. I'm with you. I want a rising young offensive minded coach, and I'm about to give one, but Leftwich ain't my guy.
This is the inverse of the Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy situation. Bruce Arians is just a gargoyle. Like,
yes, agree, 100%. No, I'm with you. Yes.
I don't like what he's doing. Yeah. So
okay,
but fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
All right, Jeremy, who is at number 3 for you?
You want to talk about a young guy? I got a 31-year-old offensive coordinator in the NFL who's in his first year in the NFL as an offensive coordinator, but he's been under Sean Payton. He just is responsible for the number 1 draft pick in this draft. Joe Burrow. Give me Panthers offensive coordinator Joe Brady. This is my wild one. This is my, like, let's roll the dice and hope we got the next Sean McVay type of thing. But cutting your teeth with Sean Payton is a pretty good place to start. Going over to LSU and turning Joe Burrow into an absolute star after he was basically an unknown at LSU is a big kind of notch in his belt. And I think he's done a pretty darn good job over in Carolina. Granted, they have a lot of weapons, but he's had to do most of it without Christian McCaffrey. And I go back to a couple weeks ago, or 1 week ago, when the Lions played him, and they had a pretty good game plan for PJ Walker. He made a couple of mistakes in that game, but I thought they looked pretty good. And yes, all of that comes with a huge caveat that they played the Lions defense and basically everyone looked good. But given that you had a short timeline to give PJ Walker a pretty different quarterback, I thought they came out with a good game plan. Now, again, I kind of have a pros and cons list here. You know, he's only been coaching since 2013. Obviously, since you're a 31-year-old, you're not going to have a deep resume. I think that might limit his ability to round out finding a coaching staff as well. Probably haven't created a bunch of connections. There's also kind of the weird situation where at LSU, he accepted a 3-year extension, and then a week later, he bolted to Carolina. That kind of stuff is always kind of like, don't do that. Like, I don't know. You want a guy that can make a decision and stick with it. It's just kind of always super risky to take a super young guy like that because you never know how they're going to work out with players that are potentially older than him.
Yeah, let me vibe off a few things. First off, on taking the deal with LSU and then bolting to Carolina, I don't fault him as much for that, just because college contracts in the college ranks, they're on napkins, man. Guys do it all the time in college. It's kind of accepted at this point. Guys just take the money and then bolt whenever they want. Older guys than Joe Brady have done that. I'm just going to say that.
Sure.
Like, if I'm going to fault him for anything, he's going along with a well-trod tradition of coaches just getting a bunch of money and then immediately going for greener pastures. I vibe with what you're saying in that he's probably doesn't have a lot of connections to make a coaching staff. He would probably have to lean on a good general manager. And again, I want my coaches to be strong in the NFL. I don't want them leaning on general managers. I think that coaches should be the ones kind of leading the charge in a lot of the ways, especially if you are of an offensive mind, because you're kind of, in my mind, a little more hands-on. But again, the big thing for me is that I don't want to be covering a coach who's younger than me. I'm sorry. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that reality, Jeremy. I'm not ready for he's older than Ryan, but younger than the two of us.
But you know what? Maybe we get Joe Brady to play Fortnite with us on Twitch.
Maybe I
play some Call of Duty.
The other thing too is like
with Joe Brady.
I think we're jumping the gun a little bit on him because again, as you said, he was the passing coordinator and a position coach at LSU. He's the offensive coordinator for the Panthers, and Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule gets a lot of the credit right now in Carolina. I'm not saying I'm taking too much away from Brady, but Rule is a fantastic offensive mind. But then before that, he's an offensive assistant for the Saints. He's a graduate assistant for Penn State, and he's the linebackers coach at William and Mary. I know he's young, but there's not a lot of resume to go off there and say this guy is ready to be an NFL head coach. I think he needs a little more time to bake.
That's what they said about Sean McVay. He was not even yet 31 when they hired him.
Really? Well, I mean, as the head coach?
Yeah. Sean McVay, 2 weeks, I think, either 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after he turned 31 is when Sean McVay got hired.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like I'm dying here.
We'll get to one of the names on Chris's list, but let's just say that the first time a head coach gets hired and they're pretty young, I feel like that works out a lot less often than it hits.
Well, it's funny you say that because I am going to start here. And in place of number 3, this is the crazy hamburger. Let's get nuts. Jeremy's already shaking his head, but I am serious about this guy. And like, listen, he's the lowest on my list. You know what? He is my 3 right now. He is my way out in left field pick, but I want to stump for him. And that's Lane Kiffin. Lane bleeping Kiffin. I would like to see him as an NFL head coach. And like, listen, I know you are holding 10-year history against him. He was so young when he got that Oakland Raiders head coaching job. And that was a disservice that Al Davis put upon him to throw him in that bleeping young when he had very little experience up until that point. And yeah, then he goes from there to Tennessee and, stinks up the joint. Then it goes to USC, stinks up the joint. But I'm sorry, you have to fail sometimes to go upwards. And after he went to Alabama, we saw the offensive mind that he could do at Alabama with the talent he got, how he Alabama. Do you not remember before Lane Kiffin, those Alabama offenses were just really a slow rumbling machine with AJ McCarron at quarterback. And suddenly he put it in there and brought them in, not only into the 21st century, but into the future. And then here's the big thing. And I know you guys are like shaking your head about this because it's a small school, but guess what? This is the Matt Rule blueprint. This is what Matt Rule did, and look where he is in the NFL. Lane Kiffin then, after Alabama, went and took the head coaching job at Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic has been a nothing burger since Howard Schnellenberger started that. A literal nothing burger. Howard Schnellenberger was actually awful there too. He put Florida, he was taking Florida Atlantic to the bowl games. That was never heard of. And it's not because he was a good recruiter there. Maybe he is a good recruiter on the college level, but what happened at Florida Atlantic was a system of how well he was scheming for that level of play. And he was housing everyone. He was running circles around people. It's a small thing, but he also has small talent too. No one's going to Florida Atlantic. He's taking guys and making them punch way above their pay grade. I think at this point, he's going to come back to the NFL at some point. He is the son of Monte Kiffin. And as we know in the NFL, they love their dynasties. He is going to come back to the NFL at some point. I think he's done enough in my eyes to redeem himself and show that he has the offensive mind that I want. And everything I know about him is also that he is a guy who he's very personable, but he doesn't rub his players the wrong way.
Well, he certainly rubs our Twitch chat the wrong way based on their responses.
I know. Like, again, but that's what I mean. Everyone remembers the Raiders years. They remember USC. They remember the really awful year at Tennessee. But I'm telling you guys, you have to pay attention to his recent career. He has redeemed himself. He's revitalized his career. Please give him a chance there. Go and see what he was doing at Florida Atlantic. It's amazing. And again, that's what Matt Rule did. Matt Rule took Temple and made them into something, and then went to a Baylor that was emaciated and put them back on the map before he came back to the NFL. That's the Matt Rule playbook. And Matt Rule, I believe, is also going to be one of the great coaches in the NFL going forward.
All right.
Okay.
You've done your sell job. That's the one you're really pounding the table for.
No, I have one that I'm really pounding the table for coming up a little bit later.
Okay.
But I think I'm going to pound the table on all these guys. Don't worry. So
well, we
anyway,
only have a limited amount of time if we're going to do any mailbag.
I'm sorry. Let's move on. Number 2, Ryan.
All right, so this is my Matt Rule, Cliff Kingsbury kind of hire if the Lions want to go to the college coaching ranks. It's not Lane Kiffin. It is Iowa State's Matt Campbell. Now, if you are at all familiar with the Maction, this is a former Matt Coach of the Year.
Toledo guy.
Makes his way, interim coach for Toledo, then gets promoted. Then he has success at Toledo, wins the MAC, and then moves on to Iowa State, completely rebuilds their program. AP Big 12 Coach of the Year. And now he has Iowa State positioned to win their first Big 12 championship since before the Great Depression. So here's what I like about Matt Campbell. Young guy, seems very, very personable. I mean, after the game against Texas this week, they were interviewing him and he got pretty emotional and kind of like broke down, and he was just so proud of all the hard work that all of his players had been putting in, and just seems like a very down-to-earth guy. And I think that's what the Lions need. Also, background as an offensive line coach in other places that he was at, Bowling Green before he made his way to Toledo. So offensive-minded guy, young, college ranks. Actually, the Jets wanted to interview him last season, and he declined the interview. So it seems like he's a pretty smart guy too. So
why would you take the Lions job then?
Hopefully he says, I want to coach Frank Ragnow. Hopefully that's the selling point. Is that, let's think about this. Realistically, one of the building blocks that you would count as being an essential piece to the Lions moving forward is their offensive front. And what better to get a guy in here who has guys like TJ Hawkinson and, Frank Ragnow and Jonah Jackson and Taylor Decker. That has to be appetizing.
Fair.
Yeah. He's from Toledo, so I like it automatically.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a guy I need to do a deeper dive on, but I do, all the things I hear about him, like great personality fit. That to me is one of the biggest things that have come through from what I've heard on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy, who's your number 2?
My number 2 just hung 45 points on the Indianapolis Colts defense. Give me Arthur Smith, the Titans offensive coordinator. You look at what he's done with Ryan freaking Tannehill, a former first-round pick that was just flailing in the first, 5-6 years of his career. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in the past 2 seasons. And you think of the Titans offense and you're like, it's just Derrick Henry. No, it's not. If you're looking at DVOA, this team has actually been better passing the ball than they've been running the ball. And yes, Derrick Henry helps both of those things. But to me, he's turned that Titans offense into one of the better ones, one of the most overlooked, I think, offenses in the NFL because we just kind of hyper-focus on Derrick Henry. 402 points for the Titans last year, second most in franchise history. He's one really interesting thing about him is that he's served in Tennessee for the past 6 or 7 years under 4 different head coaches. Every single one was like, you know what? You're worth keeping around. You know what? You're worth keeping around. You know what? You're worth keeping around. And now it's all seeming to click in Tennessee, and he has a big part in that. Now, again, I got some cons that I want to talk about. The fact that he's been in Tennessee basically his entire career, that could be viewed as a downgrade. Like, we just hired a guy who spent his entire career in one place, and it tends to get you a little narrowly focused. Now, the fact that he's been with 4 head coaches, maybe that means he's been a little more diversified in what he's seen in the NFL. And other than that, he just doesn't have a ton of experience. He's 38, so he's also pretty young. Only been coaching for, not nearly as long as the next guy I want to talk about. But overall, I'm really impressed with what they're doing in Tennessee. He's been able to really, if you want the run game to finally be here in Detroit, and I don't want that to necessarily be a focus because, like I said, I think Arthur Smith has done a great job with balance. But I've talked before about how I want an offensive-minded coach. He seems to be one of the smart young guys in the NFL who's able to do it in different ways. And so Arthur Smith is number 2 on my list.
No, I like it. And my number 2, or should I say, this is kind of the I feel like this is a steady choice, and for a lot of the same reasons that Jeremy is going with. It kind of informs my choice here for my number 2 / can right the ship and kind of be steady and probably reliable. And that is another offensive coordinator who also had a win today. And we're going to go up to New York State. Brian Daboll. I think I'm saying that name right. Excuse me. Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Now, Brian Daboll I just kind of did a lot of research last week or so into him. And look, he's got a pretty long track record as far as where he's been, but he's still young. He's 45, not as young as Joe Brady, but still respectable age there. He has some New England backgrounds if you want to hold that against him, but he was doing positional coach stuff there. He took some time. He was with the Browns. He was with the Dolphins. He was with the Chiefs. He even jumped down to he was the quarterbacks coach in Alabama in 2017, where he worked with Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. But since coming to Buffalo, man, it's hard to argue about what he's been able to turn some of those pieces on Buffalo into. Like Josh Allen, I know Ryan does not like Josh Allen much at all, but look at what he's gotten. But the success of Josh Allen, Josh Allen might not be good, but Daboll has gotten amazing work out of him. He's gotten amazing work out of the best pieces out there. And everything we know about Daboll is that he is a big X's and O's guy. He has kind of this scheming magic that is working up there in Buffalo, which is a place that has never had an offense. And the Bills are just housing people right now. They're 8-3. They're going to be going to the playoffs. He's had several teams looking at him for head coaching jobs. I think the Browns interviewed him this year. So he's going to get a head coaching job soon. Other teams see the possibility in him as a head coaching candidate. So I like Brian Daboll as kind of your offensive coordinator, sexy pick to go to the Detroit Lions.
All right. I like that. That's a guy not a lot of people are talking about. And so
because it's the Buffalo Bills. Yeah,
probably. Time for our number 1s. Oh, our stupid.
That's why I'm running the backup.
Number 1.
Yeah. Let's talk about our number 1s.
Well, so don't we all have the same number 1?
Spoiler alert, we all have the same number 1. And I think it's the one that has made Twitch chat going insane here, waiting for us to say it. It is it's the guy from Dearborn. He's the hometown kid and everything. It's Robert Saleh. We all have him on our list at our number 1.
Yeah.
There's really not much to say. I think I wrote it down not as my number 1, but if he wants this job, you give him the job pick.
Yeah. And you've heard how much I've been pounding the table for an offensive guy. So for me to put Robert Saleh, a defensive guy at number 1, really goes to show you how much I respect the man and would get excited as a head coaching candidate. And I'm not usually one to get all that excited about this sort of thing because I realize you were saying it off air, sometimes there's this group think, sometimes we all get excited about the same guy and then we're all wrong. I don't know. I can't think of any recent examples in Detroit. There's probably not any.
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever. But he's had the longest coaching career of all my candidates. He's a former linebackers coach. Guess what needs a lot of help on the lines right now? Linebackers. I know Matt Patricia was on the linebackers too, so let's ignore that.
Yeah, and like, you don't. And I think our focus on offensive guys has been warranted. We kind of do this thing right. I think we talked about this before. More towards like personality too. Like we seem to NFL in general. We flip flop. Hey, did the defensive guy not work out? Let's go get an offensive mind.
Right.
Did the hard nose jerk, yelling at people guy not work out? Well, let's go get a players coach. That guy was too soft. Let's go get a firm leader of men. We go back and forth constantly in the NFL. But I think there is like Saleh can go and hire one of these Brian Dabbles or Joe Brady's or any of these guys of the world and make them their coordinator. He just needs to be a leader of men. And everything I've heard about Saleh in San Francisco is that Kyle Shanahan's kind of the guy who's in the back scheming up stuff, kind of doing his wizardry, really into the schemes and everything. And Saleh is the executor of that will. He is the guy who puts that all into motion, and kind of he's kind of the go-to, the major domo of Shanahan.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's perfect for a head coach.
Yeah, there's a couple points I want to make there too. Like his success is obviously independent of the head coach. The head coach is an offensive guy, he's a defensive guy. So that's already a big check in his, where we can't give a check for Eric Bieniemy, that's where Saleh has a big advantage there. I want to read this paragraph from Niners Nation, who wrote an article, I think today, called Saleh is the early favorite to become the Lions' next head coach. Niners Nation, the SB Nation blog for the Niners. Here's what writer Kyle Posey has to say. Losing Saleh to Detroit would be a worst-case scenario for the 49ers. The Lions fired their general manager, Bob Quinn. They'll also need someone to call the offense. Saleh could pluck Adam Peters, the current vice president of personnel to the 49ers, to be his GM in Detroit, along with Mike McDaniel. The latter has been the genius behind the 49ers' run game as offensive coordinator. That'd give the Lions a power combo that would be difficult to top. Now, yeah, the idea of him plucking someone from Kyle Shanahan has me very, very hot and bothered. I'm a huge fan of Kyle Shanahan. So if he can pull anyone from that San Francisco offensive side of the ball to bring with him, whoo boy, yes, please. And also, he has a good eye for coaching staff, because there was a great article by John Neo that kind of went through Saleh and some of the amazing personal stories that he's gone through. And one interesting point he talked about, when they were both at Central Michigan, there was a spot on the offense that opened up that Saleh could have gone after. He didn't. And he recommended someone else who was a relative unknown. And this is actually for the Houston Texans, I should say. But he recommended someone from those CMU days, Matt LaFleur. Has a good eye for talent. That man is now a head coach in the NFL. And so, I mean, I think he could put together a good staff. I think his defensive, acumen speaks for itself. His first 2 years were obviously not that great in San Francisco as a first-time play caller. But you see what he's doing now, even with a decimated defensive roster right now. San Francisco is in the top 10 in basically every defensive stat. We just saw them today pretty much shut down the Rams completely. They had 20 points, I think, in that game.
Yeah, he took a
and
no.
They
won. They won today.
They won. Yes, the Rams had 20 points in that game, and 7 of them were defensive scores. So he shut down the Rams after the Rams put a hurting on what, the Bucs last week or whatever. But either way, that 49ers defense is rolling, even with a decimated roster. He's exciting. He's excited on the sidelines. Give me Robert Saleh. He's first, and it's not close.
Ryan, any thoughts on Saleh?
I think what's most interesting is what Jeremy just brought up. If it's Robert Saleh and he's bringing somebody along with him to kind of ease that transition in Peters, I think that's interesting. If they decide to kind of now, this sounds silly, right? Because the Lions just tried to replicate what another team did, and they recruited 2 guys from Boston to try to do that. I'd be a little bit more optimistic about this one, just because it isn't attached to that putrid tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. I think the thing with the Saleh hiring would provide me with optimism would be like the ties to Shanahan, the ties to, John Lynch, who's done an awesome job as a general manager, with Peters as, vice president. Like I like the connections there more than I was going to be in on anything Matt Patricia related.
For me, I agree with everything you guys are saying. The other thing that I want to touch on is the feeling I always got with Patricia is I didn't feel like, and this is me going character here. I mean, besides the obvious problems with Patricia's character, I never felt like Patricia really gave a damn about the organization, about, it was about his personal glory at the end of the day. And for Salah, I know I'm projecting a little bit, but man, he went to Dearborn, Michigan. He went to Fordson in Dearborn. He attended college at Northern Michigan. The guys from around Michigan, and I mean, maybe that means something. It would be nice to get someone in here who seems to really give a damn again, who cares about this whole idea. Is like, hey, the Lions should be on that map. The Lions should be on that map. They should, like, they don't deserve the reputation of like, okay, this is a low tier job. Like, and I think it does matter at the end of the day if you can get someone like Salah in here who has, who hopefully will have a good heart out there and just can show that you can, like, put this team back together.
And the one thing I will say about the Michigan ties, like, we're already starting to see a conversation about, well, there's 4 GM openings already. There's 4 or 5 head coaching openings. Why would anyone choose the Lions when they got to start from the bottom up, when they have an aging quarterback on a hefty contract? Well, Robert Saleh would probably take this job. The Lions were his hometown team. How awesome would it be to become the head coach of your childhood team and be the one to turn things around? Like,
to be its savior at this point.
That would have to be one of, like, it'd be an amazing story. You have to imagine it's
a temptation for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an absolute temptation.
And so, I mean, I hate to fall in love with a guy this early when we don't even have a general manager, but to me, all the stars are aligned here. The only major concern is those first 2 years in San Francisco where the defense was bad, very bad. And then they get kind of an influx of talent and everything turns around. Now, I think this year is a good example, though, that he can deal with not so great talent. They've had so many injuries and they've been doing pretty well and keeping their head above water. So there is a concern there, but he's an energetic guy. He's a young guy. And I just think all the stars kind of align here where it would make a lot of sense to bring him here.
And that concludes our list cast. So going down the names again, we both have given we all have given thumbs down to Jim Harbaugh, Eric Bieniemy. Ryan's list, Matt Campbell, Byron Leftwich, Robert Saleh. Jeremy's list, if Joe Brady, Arthur Smith, Robert Saleh. For myself, Lane Kiffin. I see chat hating me for it. Don't. I'm telling you, man. Trust, big trust. Brian Dabble from the Buffalo Bills and Robert Saleh. We're all in agreement about Saleh. Just that's how sexy the pick is. And again, maybe we're doing some groupthink. I don't care. We're going to take a quick break, and then I think when we come back, we have mailbag to get to. We've kind of put it off for a while. I want to get some questions in here in the post-Patricia era as we wrap up the Pride of Detroit PODcast. Okay, I'm going to try to get the bot back in here. At least maybe we can use him for segment 3. Okay. Someone was asking where he went to school. So he in Detroit, he actually was in Dearborn. It was Fordson High School in Dearborn is where Salah is from.
Really quick, Sprinkled McDonut, thank you for the follow. Gordon Fiala on YouTube, thank you for subbing to the channel. Nick the Greek, thank you for more bits, 53 more bits it looks like. Thano TV, thank you for the 2 months of Twitch Prime subbing to the channel, and I think I'm caught up on alerts. Brandon 9373, thank you for the follow as well.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to clarify too on Salah, like, we're not doing a Michigan man thing here. Like, there's legit reasons to go for him besides that he's local.
If we were going the whole Michigan man route, why wouldn't we be thumping the table for Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who, like, objectively speaking, who has had more success at the NFL? Robert Saleh or Jim Harbaugh? Like,
yeah.
Come on. Like, if we were so, like, locked in and group thinking about, trying to move some shells in Michigan, like Jim Harbaugh would be the slam dunk, but it's so obviously not.
people have some other questions. I know Lincoln Riley has been showing up as a name in the chat for a while. That's a college coach in my mind.
And I don't think he's going anywhere either. Like
no,
he just got handed the keys to the kingdom by Stoops. So
yeah. Hey, can you guys hear me? I don't know if I'm crashing.
Yeah,
there it goes. Yeah, it's just I'm freezing up for a second. No, he come on. Oklahoma is one of the best college jobs in the country. And he's got a ton of money. He's got the keys to the castle, as you say. Like, he's doing well at Oklahoma. I'm leery about a guy who has that kind of a recruiting base like Oklahoma. So, I mean, I know some people are saying too that we have no guys who have head coaching experience on our lists. Those are kind of rare these days. Like,
do you have someone in mind? Who do you have in mind, chat?
Well, that's it. I don't have a lot of guys in mind.
Well, I mean, they're talking about NFL head coaching experience?
Yeah, guys who have previous NFL head coaching experience.
I mean, some other names that I've seen out there, like Todd Bowles, if they want to give him another chance. I mean, I thought he got a really raw deal in Arizona, but or even with the Jets.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't know if I want that to be my reclamation. I don't know if that's the forward-thinking guy that the Lions really need, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. Jim Schwartz isn't coming back. Jim Caldwell isn't coming back. Jeff Fisher probably isn't done.
Can we stop with the revisionist history about Jim Caldwell? Can we stop with the
revisionist history about Jim Schwartz?
Yeah, let's stop treating Jim Caldwell like the Lions, moved on from Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, too, I saw someone say Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore is about ready to be run out of town by Dallas fans. They do not like him right now.
In his defense, I mean, that offensive line is not what they were expecting it to look like. I think on Thanksgiving Day, like, none of their starters were along that offensive line.
Someone's invoking Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis doesn't move the needle for me at all. Guys.
All right, how about Brian Billick and
Bill Cowher? Yeah.
What about Urban Meyer? I feel like is also a popular name. No, I'm not even kidding. Like,
okay, here's the thing with like we talked about this before with college coaches, right?
Yeah.
Some of them, their skill is recruiting guys. You do not recruit guys in the NFL. That is not a job you have. Urban Meyer is a recruiter. That is how he makes those teams. He had a massive staff in Ohio State to handle a lot of the offensive stuff. He is a recruiter at the end of the day. And he's been working with Fox Sports 1 on their college football stuff. I've kind of been led to believe that when he came out here, he was kind of hoping that the USC job would open up and he would just kind of snatch that up. But I don't think he has NFL in his mind at all. He is a college guy through and through. You guys agree? Disagree? What? Like,
I don't know college. I don't get a sense he wants to be. I never have gotten a sense that he wants to be in the NFL.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to end like Steve Spurrier in Washington. Just a complete mismatch.
Yeah, he seems like he has college coach written all over him.
Yeah. There are some college coaches.
The guy walked away for health reasons too, right? Like, I mean,
that was his excuse from walking away from Florida before he got hit with sanctions too, though, was health reasons. Yeah. The guy's very good at getting out of Dodge right before the NCAA nuke hits. And he was going through all that stuff with like oh God.
He's gone. Stop.
What?
He's not coming back. He's retired. He's comfortable retired. I don't think he has any.
Wait, are we talking about Tony Dungy, or are we talking about 88?
We're never talking about 88.
Lions could really use some wide receiver help.
Stop it.
Pat Fitzgerald could be fun. Again, I don't think Pat Fitzgerald wants to leave Northwestern. I know I've seen Pat Fitzgerald name. Well, here's the thing. I've seen people banning around Pat Fitzgerald's name for like the Michigan job. Like, I've heard some arguments to the contrary. It's like Pat Fitzgerald he played at Northwestern. He was a player at Northwestern. This is literally his dream job, and they're not ready to move on from him. And he's still committed to making Northwestern like a good school, a powerhouse in the Big Ten. Like, I don't think he's not a mercenary ready to jump ship. I know Brian Kelly. I thought I saw his name. I think Brian Kelly's chance to jump to the NFL, that ship is kind of that ship is kind of passed. Like he's doing good stuff at Notre Dame, don't get me wrong, but I think Notre Dame's given him more than enough money. I don't know. I know I saw his name way back, like 3-4 years back, being bandied around for the Eagles job. I don't think Brian Kelly's going to move on from college either. Again, another recruiting guy. And also giant asshole.
Tom Brady after he retired. Okay, Chad is just sliding out of control at this point, which I think it means we should probably jump into our final segment.
Yeah, we should.
Our mailbag segment. By the way, if you guys have any legit questions, feel free to throw them in the chat right now. But let's hang on to reality while a little bit here.
One last man hire Mike Leach. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay, let's do this. Sorry, let me get up all the questions here too. Was there one, Jeremy, you want me to start on, or
no? I just got rid of one because I realized I didn't like it, which was I'll
sorry,
tell the chat. It was top 5 moments of Matt Patricia's career, and not ironically. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't even know if I can think of one. Let's not do that.
I could probably give you. To be fair to that question we just nixed, I will give you at least the Patriots game, his first year.
Yeah,
I'll give him that.
The very first play of his career.
I mean, that was legitimately, like, we kind of came in after that game and we were feeling really good. We thought it was kind of rough and everything, but that Patriots game gave a lot of people hope. I was in a bar in Pico, surrounded by New England, Boston fans, and it felt good. Not gonna lie.
I will say Matt Patricia probably has the greatest first defensive play of a Detroit Lions season ever.
Yeah, contradicts fair. We did end that year shutting out Green Bay, but if I remember, Green Bay was hobbled by that point.
They had phoned it in. They had completely phoned it in that game. I ain't giving them credit for any of that.
Yeah. I can't even think of anything cool from 20. That's the thing. 2019 is a complete blank.
Here's a question. Do you think week 17 we're going to get a trick play this year? Because, now that Matt Patricia's gone, that's been a staple of week 17. Right. That was one of the most hardcore
It just makes me think about how awful the last 3 seasons of Lions football has been. I mean, I'll take it back. Even Jim Caldwell's last season, the trick plays against the Packers in
week 17
in the finale. What? All the good trick plays come out when nothing matters.
I don't know. We just had a pretty awesome one on Thanksgiving that for some reason they didn't call a catch.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool one.
How'd that work out? Anyway.
All right.
Let's do this. I've got the questions up.
Okay.
Wrapping up the Pride of Detroit PODcast classic style. We haven't done a mailbag in a main podcast in a while. It's always kind of been its own thing lately. We have a few questions we're going to get to. I know we're going long here, but we're going to get some questions. And thank you if you're listening to the whole thing downloaded on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. Or if you're watching one of the replays on Twitch or YouTube. So let's get to the mailbag. Do we want to start Lions question, or should we just go off the rail here? Actually, no, I'm going to start with the Lions question, since we were just talking about coaching candidates, from Al Bashara, who is asking us, assuming we get a solid general manager and coach replacement this offseason, and based on the current roster, how many seasons away from, quote, meaningful games in December, unquote, are we?
It's a good question, and I think we've all been a bit pessimistic in the past few weeks about where this roster is, and saying, this is kind of a long-term reclamation project. We've already seen Dan Orlovsky, and I'm only saying his name to get a reaction out of Ryan. We've seen him kind of crack a joke at Matt Patricia's expense, saying, the next head coach actually has a lot of work to do when they take over, and it's true. But I think if the bar, which... If you're setting the bar at meaningful games at December, which is fairly low, and it's something that we should have at least gotten to this year and we didn't, I could see it happening in year 2. I think there are enough offensive pieces with Stafford, or if you decide to go quarterback, in the draft. You got a good running back. You got a good tight end. You got at least three, maybe even four good pieces on the offensive line. That's at least enough of a building block. And then if you get a defensive-minded coach like Robert Saleh, then maybe the defense turns around a little bit quicker than you'd think. And you can make a lot of roster changes in 2 years. So I'd say year 2 you could get meaningful games.
The tough thing is, Jeremy, is that you almost have to have meaningful games happening in December by year 2. Otherwise, you're on the hot seat, just like Matt Patricia was.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's the tough thing about the NFL. Like you like, it's a results oriented league, and you have to have those results. And if that doesn't happen, then you're out the door. So I would hope it's by year 2.
I don't have an answer here. I'm dealing with some technical difficulties on my end. I found one of our recorders crashed. So have to put together some of this. If you're listening on the podcast and there's suddenly some bit noises, because we once again have to pull from Twitch, I apologize in the middle of this podcast. But I mean, we're rolling recorders now, so it's fine. But maybe during the listcast crap. Anyway, sorry, adequate. Just put the thing out there. Anyway, yeah, I think we're at least probably 3 years. I think whatever success is going to come with the Lions is, unfortunately, at this point, going to come after Stafford, unless he has a really good back end to his career. I think it's going to take some time to rebuild at this point. I think we talked about this yesterday, Jeremy. Like, the main parts you can build around right now are like half the offensive line and DeAndre Swift for the long term. And, we know running backs have kind of a shelf life too.
True.
So, yeah, but no, I think it's possible. I'm not, anything's possible in the NFL at this point. Like, we've seen some crazy stuff. We might even be able to win with the talent that's here, as bad as we've been bagging them.
It does feel like coaching has been a pretty big issue. And so maybe guys like Tracy Walker, Deshaun Hand, maybe they thrive under someone new.
Look, man, I've seen too many of these worst to first kind of scenarios in the NFL in recent years. Guys come in and suddenly they just light the joint on fire. They usually take a step back after that. But, I mean, we saw it with the Rams, right? Like, McVay comes in first year. They just take off. I mean, granted, they had a ton of talent in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles. But when they jettisoned Jeff Fisher. But, point remains. All right. Albino Coconut sending us 2 questions. What part of the Thanksgiving meal is your favorite leftover to have in the following days? He has a second question, but let's get to the Thanksgiving question first.
I'll be honest. Dressing / it's dressing
Stuffing.
or stuffing.
Stuffing.
Went like almost to the top of my side dish power rankings this Thanksgiving. I don't know if I've just been eating bad stuffing and dressing my entire life, but that shit's fire. Like, and it's the first thing I've eaten from my leftovers. There aren't any left, and I'm mad about it. It's stuffing by a long shot. It's a Robert Saleh above everyone else.
So I usually go pumpkin pie, but this year is the first year I made my own cranberry sauce, and I have a jar of it. I have a mason jar full of it in the fridge right now. I've been kind of going in and taking spoonfuls and like putting it on some toast or something, or just serving it with some other meat. And yeah, I mean, hey, the usual one is probably like the turkey sandwich, right? Just taking that turkey and just loading it up with some veggies and cheese, and that's always good too. Ryan, do you have an answer on this?
Yeah, I like my favorite thing about Thanksgiving is the leftover open face sandwich I make with, all the fixings on top of it. But 100% the best side dish is green bean casserole.
Here it comes again.
That's worse than Lane Kiffin. Worse than Lane Kiffin.
Oh, get the hell out of here. Here's what
Listen,
I have to say about what you said.
At least there's no Kyle here to talk about fruit salad,
Yeah,
just
at least we
count
have
your
that.
blessing.
Jeremy, I totally agree with you, though. Like, if you're just having the stuffing revelation now, you were having some really bad stuffing. But it's totally within the realm of possibility that people make bad stuffing, because that happens all the time. You see the atrocities every year on social media. So, green bean casserole, though, for the win.
Oh,
a lot of people also this year trying to cancel turkey for whatever reason, saying turkey's a bad meat. Can I just tell you people out there, brine your damn bird.
Yeah.
First thing right there, brine your Dan Bird and then use some seasonings besides salt and pepper.
Yeah, and also what you just mentioned too, Chris, like I think a huge cheat code to eating turkey is taking a bite of cranberry sauce with it. Like it's just perfect.
You're supposed to serve it with the other things. You get a spoonful, you mix it up there. But even on its own, like we were talking here on Thanksgiving, we had our Discord chat out here. I was talking with oh God, I'm completely blanking on his name now, and I really shouldn't because he's an older guy who hangs out with us in the chat, but he was talking about smoking the turkey. Like, you don't need to bake it in the oven. If you do, you absolutely have to brine the bird. But there's so many ways you can prep your bird on Thanksgiving. I don't get this hate against turkey. Turkey is a great lunch meat. It's a great meat. And like, if you're really not feeling the flavor on it, second cheat code, go for the dark meat. Go for the dark meat and don't look back, man. I know everyone wants turkey breast. They want the white meat. It's healthy, whatever. Get yourself a drumstick. Get yourself a thigh. Treat yourself.
Facts.
All right. His second question, if we're pulling a coach or GM, would it be better to grab a hot name or someone from a traditionally solid and stable franchise? He's thinking Pittsburgh or Baltimore that has success every single year. Well, I think the problem there is a lot of those guys just aren't available.
Yeah, well, I think his answer to so it's either get the hot name or you go for a traditional franchise that develops a bunch of things. And I think the answer is different for coach and GM. For coach, I'm all for grabbing the hot name. Because if you're grabbing a coach from a traditionally good franchise, you're running the risk of the franchise, whoever's running the franchise really the one that's producing all the talent, whether it's, constantly drafting well or, the head coach at the top of it. Tomlin's obviously doing a good job over in Pittsburgh, and Harbaugh is doing a good job over there in Baltimore. But if you're talking general manager, I'm 100% okay with grabbing a guy from, one of those franchises that, like I said, a lot of times those teams are doing well because they have great talent scouts. They have guys that are bringing in the right guys in free agency. They have the guys that are, drafting well and finding the right college things. So if I'm talking a head coach, I'm okay with grabbing the hot name as long as it's not tied to maybe one of those franchises. And then if you're going GM, give me a guy who's cut his teeth with a good franchise. And I realize Bob Quinn, yes, is one of those guys, but I think you just maybe don't do Patriots, and then you might be okay.
Yeah. By the way, it was Big Al. I'm sorry, I've completely missed your name. Big Al, who was smoking the turkey. No, I agree with everything you were saying there. Jeremy. Like, it's just hard with these big, older franchise. Some of those franchises that just like, I mean, how much? I don't know how to really rule out of who I'm taking out of Baltimore. I just don't. When you got John Harbaugh there, some of those, like it feels like. And again, it feels like a lot of those guys aren't available, and they're not available for a reason too. Like they're just beholden to that franchise. I think what makes them good is that their coaching staffs aren't constantly looking for new jobs all the time. You want that to be your case eventually in Detroit. If you're going to be a good team, is that you've got the head coach who has his coaching staff locked down, who is not getting poached. I think that's important. Ryan?
Yeah, I agree with that being an important point.
Loaded Aries sends us this question. On a percentage basis, how certain do you guys think the Boston boys were going to get let go after Thursday's game? And what does this say about Sheila so far? So if you listen to the podcast we recorded on Saturday, I think we were very hard on Sheila Ford-Hamp, considering some of the things that she said, including that she still thought the Lions were in the playoff hunt, and kind of seemed like she was just, and like, probably looking at the record, but I don't know. Maybe she's just an optimistic fan at the end of the day, Jeremy. Maybe she's drunk the Kool-Aid. Maybe she's not an SOL or whatever. I don't know. I would say percentage. I think I was at a 65%. I think I've been saying for weeks prior, they were either going to be fired after Thanksgiving or at the end of the season. I think I was at 65% after Thanksgiving.
I think we said it on this podcast that we expected if there was going to be a firing that it was going to happen after Thanksgiving, a nationally televised game to a rather listless Texans team. If that happened, obviously some other dominoes had to fall, but the Carolina loss really paved the way.
Yeah.
You know, if I think I don't know if the Lions end up winning that Carolina game, maybe Sheila Ford Hamp still thinks the Lions are in the playoff hunt. If they lose then to the Texans, does the firing still happen, or does she wait it out a little bit longer? But I think the Carolina loss was the loss where it was all right, shut out for the first time in over a decade. The writing on the wall is pretty clear here at this point. I just don't know if without that domino falling, if a loss on Thanksgiving, no matter how it would have been the final nail in the coffin for both of them.
Yeah, I think 2 embarrassing back-to-back losses in those fashions in 4 days. That's a killing blow.
And Jeremy, you go ahead and grab your point, but the last thing I want to say is if you're Sheila Ford Hamp and you think, well, this is still a team that might have playoff aspirations, and then you lose 2 games like the way they lost those games to Carolina and Houston, well, then it's like, I thought I had Ritz crackers and I got saltines.
I like saltines.
I like saltines too.
But it
crackerless cast sometime.
I'm not entirely sure what the question is asking, whether it means whether I thought they'd get fired literally right after the Thanksgiving game or whether I thought they'd get fired, period. Because if the question is, did I think they'd get fired after their performance, period, 99%, like they were done. They were cooked. I don't know. I
like a bird.
Yes, like a bird. And I don't know. I was probably about 65% chance that it was going to happen in the following days from that firing. And to the second question, what does it say about Sheila? Not much. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, the Lions got blown out in 4 out of their past 5 games, several of them against not good teams. Like you said, the last 2 in the past 5 days were absolutely embarrassing, and you got caught on camera face palming. Your hands were forced at this point. Like you did not have a choice but to say, okay, it's time to go. And again, I'm a little scared that there was some rumors that they took that extra day to wonder, I'm not sure about Bob Quinn. Should he go too? Like, that should have been pretty clear from the get-go too, and that has me concerned. That might say more to me about Sheila Ford than the fact that she actually pulled the trigger, because to me, that decision was made for her.
Yeah, it does feel like, I hate to invoke the ghost of William Clay Ford, but maybe there was some reluctance to pull the trigger when the trigger needed to be pulled. Which, I mean, that was a hallmark of the late William Clay Ford all the time.
Yeah.
How much of it also, real quick, do you think that maybe the fact that Bob Quinn was, Bob Quinn was Martha's first hire, like how much that maybe had to play into it, whether or not she's like, well, I really like Bob Quinn.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I do know at some point in the past 2 years or so, the Lions kind of made it clear to some people that those 2 weren't as tied together as maybe some people thought they were. But to me, there's no question that they were tied together. Like, they had to be tied together. He hired him, first of all. Second of all, Bob Quinn admitted he's much more comfortable drafting drafting for Matt Patricia. And the results speak for themselves, because it sure didn't look like it. And if you take Matt Patricia out of the equation, you take the Patriot way out of the equation, how much worse is he going to draft if he has to draft for people that aren't for that system? So, I mean, it was a no-brainer for me, which is why, again, I'm not here patting Sheila Ford Hamp on the back for making a decision that was basically made for her.
Yeah, it's the jury's still out for me on a lot of that. Kyle at Your Uncle Kyle sends us this question. Aside from losses, parenthetical draft positioning, what should we want to see from the Lions for the rest of the season?
For me, it's just young guys, right? Like, this is your opportunity to see what you have for the future. So I'd love to see Jelani Tavai take a couple steps. I don't think I'm going to. I'd love to see DeAndre Swift be able to play and stick through it healthily. I think there might be some people that are like, no, you put DeAndre Swift on the sideline. You don't want him to get hurt. I'm not one of those people. I want to see him showcase his talents, see what he can do. He's still kind of, I mean, he hasn't played a lot of games in the NFL, so I want to see him develop. Who else? I mean, Jeff Okudah I want to see out there. I want to see him get better. I think that's the focus, is just the guys that remain here under contract, the guys that we know absolutely for sure will be on the team next year. Get those guys some reps, make them play better, and see what goes on from there. And maybe you can say the same about some of the coaching staff as well. Maybe give them bigger roles and see what they can do. See what Darrell Bevell can do as a head coach. I know he has head coaching aspirations. See. I mean, maybe you can somehow. Everyone seems to love special teams coordinator Braden Coombs. Maybe slide him some extra things. Maybe make him like a defensive assistant or something. Just, I don't know. Just the pieces that we know are going to be around next year. Let's see how they do down the stretch.
Ryan, your thoughts on the question?
3-word answer: healthy Matthew Stafford.
That would be good. Yeah.
If anything happens to Matthew Stafford that hurts his trade value, that's going to be a huge problem, because then the Lions are stuck with him.
Yeah, and the way he's been getting sacked recently, it does kind of... I'm with you on the trade value, because I don't think Stafford is a long-term future or even a medium-term future in Detroit at this point.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There are worse positions to be in than being stuck with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if Stafford gets hurt, then that completely evaporates any chance you have of doing anything with him if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question here, and then we're going to wrap this up. Mr. Holland F3, Stephen James, sending us this question. What questions would you ask a potential coach regarding how they could win with the roster as it is? And what questions would you ask a potential general manager to get an understanding of what they thought of the current roster?
I have a question that I would ask the general manager. I would say, do you put a premium on speed? Because that is what this Lions defense needs. Like, they just need to be faster. They need to literally cut the weight, and they need to go to a system. And this is why I'm a big Saleh guy, is the 49ers have Fred Warner, and he might be the best linebacker in football, because there are so few linebackers today that run fits and also can cover people. Fred Warner is a cheat code in the NFL today. If I have a general manager coming in, I want a general manager who recognizes how important it is to have speed along that middle part of your defense, because we've all been firsthand witnesses to how bad this defense has been. And each year it's been the same thing. It's been a lack of a pass rush, but I mean, it's been some pretty bad linebacker play. So if I could ask a general manager, I would ask them how much they prioritize speed being a thing for their defense.
I agree with all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll throw one for the head coach as well then. I'd simply ask him, listen, your secondary isn't holding up. Are you willing to be a little risky and send some 2, 3, 4-man blitzes to help compensate, to help give them a spark, to help potentially make a quarterback make a mistake? Because this coaching staff was 100% unwilling to do something like that. And I think that's how you win when you're shorthanded in talent, when you don't have guys that can cover very well, when you don't have necessarily a front four that can win one-on-ones. You have to send some sort of risk and not just kind of bang your head against the wall and say, well, eventually it's going to work. You got to change things up. And so blitzing, I know it sounds overly simplistic, and maybe it is, but I want a head coach that's willing to maybe ramp things up in one area to help compensate for a bad spot on their team.
I would have one question, looking at the general manager, or if the head coach wants in on this. Maybe I'm going to bring both in. I'll sit them up here, and I'm going to give them a list of all the recruits in college due to come out in 2021, 2022, maybe 2023. I'm going to tell them, pick on there. 1 to 2 edge rushers you think are going to be here in the NFL. And go fucking draft them already. Jesus Christ. I'm tired of not having a pass rush. That's all. Give me a pass rush. Please, for the love of Christ, I am so tired of watching all these guys drop back into coverage we're only sending 3. Like, please, for the love of Christ, get me an edge rusher.
Totally fair and warranted. The one thing that you would obviously think would be the first question you would ask any head coach or GM, it would be, so what do you want to do with Matthew Stafford?
Yes, that's the other big point.
True. But what's the answer you want to hear, though?
See, I don't have an answer for that. That's a really tough answer.
Yeah, I have an open mind on that issue. I have a completely open mind, but I want to know you have a plan.
Yes, the plan is the important thing, because that's where it seemed like Bob Quinn lacked in execution. Like, if his plan was the Patriot way, and this is something that Zack Snyder said that I thought was really smart on Twitter. If they came to do the Patriot way, they did not do that by going out and signing all these players to big contracts. That is not the Patriot way. The Patriot way is drafting and finding undrafted free agents, and then all of a sudden getting high level play out of them, and then moving on from them when they, outplay their market value. Like, Bob Quinn had a plan, but he didn't stick to it.
Yeah. I think that's where we are going to leave this podcast. We've got through our list cast. We're bringing back mailbag. We've got we were going to try to figure out what we're going to be doing for the rest of the season. Obviously, I think First Bite is now going into the can. Any quick 30 to 10 seconds on Lions Bears coming up here?
Nope. Right now they're about to. Yep, they're just now losing, which no one cares about listening to the podcast because the game's already over.
Not live.
Mitchell Trubisky's probably going to play, so that's going to be sad for everybody involved.
My preview on it is bleep you, Robert Zaglinski.
To be clear, we're working on a midweek replacement for First.
Yeah, no, that's not gone. We're going to be doing some other stuff. We're just
not previewing.
I don't think anyone cares about where these games are going.
No,
it's just sadness.
Yeah.
Ryan, any thoughts on Bears Lions?
We own the Bears.
Make the pain stop.
Hashtag make the pain stop 2020. With that, we say farewell to you on the Pride of Detroit PODcast. For myself, for Jeremy, for Ryan Matthews, we will see you Starside. Once again, the recorder is crap. I just invited a backup recorder to the server, Jeremy, so let's test it out a little bit afterwards, after we're done on the stream.
Yeah,
I'm going to invite them in. I'm going to invite them in here right now just to see if you don't mind. Let me just see.
Now recording.
Now there's 2 of them now.
We've got 2 Bears.
This is apparently Giark, and it's called Giark, and it is Craig's evil clone, apparently.
Oh yeah, because
that really messes up. That really messes up the layout.
It is
though.
Craig backwards. That's funny.
Yeah.
That
does really mess up your layout though, because it really kind of makes us small.
It does make us a bit smaller. I'm eventually going to work on a new background and things like that. Hopefully have it.
Yeah,
soon.
I've promised to help you out with that, and I haven't been doing that. I'm sorry. I've got to get on that. Yeah.
You guys should look up Mitch Ballack. Who's Mitch Ballack?
I don't know, but I need to go eat because I'm a hungry boy.
All right.
Yeah. See you, Ryan.
Bye, guys.
See you, dude. He's a shooting guard. Why am I looking at a basketball
Jeremy,
player?
I think eventually, from what I understand, these are new issues with Craig, so we'll see.
Hopefully, he's.
But I noticed on there is they've been offering this as a solution. Is hey, we've got a backup server in France. It's like an independent recording server. So
Zeus is saying Mitch Ballack is a Ryan lookalike. There's one picture that really maybe makes your argument. This guy right here kind of looks like Ryan, but for whatever reason, when I click on it, it turns into someone else. I mean, it's the same guy, but he doesn't look nearly as much like Ryan.
Oh yeah, that's one of those generated pictures. No, you know what it is ESPN has that overlay thing. So it's I think that's his draft pick when he's in the suit. and then they just superimpose a jersey of whatever his team is over him.
Yeah, maybe that's what that was.
So that's probably what's happening. It's pulling from cash or something.
Where do you envision finding marginal gains to take advantage? Oh, that's your question. Where do you envision finding marginal gains to take advantage of? Jeremy, I'm surprised your question wasn't about analytics. I feel like analytics is kind of too much of an overarching term at this point. I feel like every NFL coach and analyst use analytics. It's just kind of like, how far are you willing to go with it?
Look, this isn't the age of sabermetrics versus the Stone Age people anymore. Like, there's no jocks versus nerds fight in the NFL. Like, you've got to use both. You've got to be a scout and you've got to look at some advanced stuff. And everyone does it. It's just a matter of what happens.
We got a donation, and I failed because this is literally our last podcast of November. And we just got a $20 donation from the Wiz 245, which brings our monthly total to up here. You can see $732.77. Unless one of you wants to give in the final moments of November. We didn't get to 1,000, which means we're not going to get Ryan the porno mustache unless one of you donates $270 right now. If you are interested in donating and you're watching via Twitch, there should be a link there in a second that pops up there. I will throw the link also in YouTube if any of your YouTubers that are still watching want to donate as well. I know that's actually going to pop up again in the Twitch chat. Sorry about that. Last few seconds, if we have like a celebrity in here for some reason that really wants to unload their piggy bank, if we get to 2,500, I will shave my legs. If we get to 5,000, Ryan will wax a nipple. I don't think we're gonna get there, but again, all it takes is one person. So
yeah, isn't Alice Cooper a Lions fan? He's probably watching.
Maybe. Are you Alice Cooper? Hello,
Alice Cooper. Are you here, Mr. Cooper? Mr. Cooper.
But yeah, just want to throw that out there. I meant to do that earlier in the podcast, but The Wiz, thank you for the $20 donation and the reminder that we are doing that. And it looks like the Bears just did something good. That's fun. Anyways, anything else from you guys in chat before we head out? Sorry that we had to skedaddle early yesterday. I had some family stuff that I had to attend to, and I was rudely caught off by the Lions firing a head coach that ruined my entire plan. So, let's see. Jeremy, why not get a GM now if he's out there and let him evaluate? Well, if you go the get a GM route now, you're basically cutting off a bunch of candidates. You can't interview any guys, any like front office people in the NFL. You're basically just limiting yourself to maybe a college guy or a guy that's like Louis Riddick is the guy that everyone really wants. And it feels like that. I feel like that's leading towards that candidate. That question is leading towards that candidate. But yeah, I mean, I get wanting to get a head start on that sort of stuff, but at the same time, you're going to limit yourself right now if you're just like, yeah, let's just hire one now, because you're not going to steal one from a current team that's, hiring. The one thing I will say though is like there's already 4 or 5 vacancies.
Yeah, and it's going to grow. Like, I don't know if Gase survives.
Well, that's head coach. Yeah, I'm talking GM. Like, there's usually not
GM. Yeah,
there's not usually 4 or 5 GM vacancies in an offseason.
Sorry, I was typing a direct message, so I kind of blanked out there. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, just God, we're going to talk about this on the episode we do it, but it's kind of hard for us, kind of sitting on the sidelines. I feel like we knew jack all about Bob Quinn. We just kind of zoomed in on him because smart people were saying Bob Quinn because of the Patriots connections, because he would bring you Matt Patricia, and we just kind of filled in the blanks from there about Bob Quinn. But for us just sitting here going out there straight, like, I can't tell you who the best draft guys are, or the scout guys or whatever. And I'm seeing a lot of people are just defaulting to Chris Spielman, and even Herman Moore is out here saying, here's why Chris Spielman isn't going to be Matt Millen. And that inspires a lot of confidence in me. It really does.
And everyone seems to be reacting to those tweets from him. Well, maybe if you had listened to our Man Coverage podcast last week, when Herman Moore specifically already said that he wanted Chris Spielman as their general manager, you would have been ahead of the game there. Just throwing that out there.
I don't want Chris Spielman. And Herman Moore, love him, but that's definitely some that's a familiarity thing. What does Spielman even have any, like, because at least when the Raiders went and got Mayock.
Mm-hmm.
Mayock, but Mayock was doing draft stuff, through the networks, and he had some background doing a lot of that stuff. Does Spielman do anything like that?
I don't know. Not that I know of, no. But
yeah,
but Reno does bring up a good point, is that it would bring him off the Fox broadcasts.
This is true. Yeah, it would probably make room for Aqib Talib.
There you go.
Yeah. But I mean, we were going from him barking on a broadcast to barking during the draft for the Detroit Lions. I don't think that's an upgrade I want.
Maybe not. Really quick before we head out, Bolson asks, Jeremy, don't you think Salah would bring the run the ball, stop the run mindset? How do you feel differently if so? Not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of focus on pass rush in San Francisco and pass rushers. They certainly seem to value guys that can rush the pass and aren't necessarily that concerned of guys that can't defend the run on the defensive front. And if he's coming from a Kyle Shanahan kind of point of view, like, yeah, they run the ball a lot there, but play action is huge in that offense. And you look at the way that they use a fullback, you look at the way they use a tight end in the passing game, I feel like that's something the Lions could have utilized a lot more in this year and really the year before. So I don't necessarily view him as the kind of that same old school mind train of thought.
Yeah. All right. I think we're all good here. Are we all good here, Jeremy? Do we have anything else we got to get to?
Doesn't look like. I'm just reading through the last.
I'm going to play around with the two bots here. I might be able to just use Jark on itself, but it is a France-based server, so I'm kind of leery a little bit, but probably won't have the traffic overload that Greg's having.
Cool.
So I'll weigh the two. I just screwed up because my the recorder I had for you and Ryan crashed, so I lost some of that stuff, but I'll be able to stitch it all together. Just, during the Listcat second segment, it might be a little dicey.
Okay.
But
well, let's say goodbye to our Twitch chat before they get bored with all of our technical stuff. And YouTube chat. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'm still getting to know you guys.
We've got to really start talking to our YouTube people at some point.
Well, I am looking at their chat. I have a program that has both of the chats together, so I'm trying to acknowledge them as much as I possibly can. You guys can't. You can't see them. Only I can because I'm special. Anyways,
I just pulled it up there too. So,
thank you all for joining us. We will have a man coverage podcast this week. I'm going to spoil it right now. It's Eric Schlitt. Don't tell anybody. We also will be doing some sort of first bite thing. It might be another mailbag. Might just be kind of like, hey, let's catch up on Lions news midweek type of thing. So be sure to check out Wednesday night here on our Twitch page, and then we'll bring the man sim back on Saturday. So, yeah, that's all I got. You got anything, Chris?
I don't know. I'm going to be writing something this week, I think. I do have something. Please go vote for the 438 podcast. We're still voting up for it. You know what? I screwed up. I should have mentioned it on this podcast. I might throw a note in before our recorded one. Me and Jerry Mallory, we are in a contest for Next Great Podcast. We just did a story on, it's a pilot. You can find it. It's pinned to my Twitter account. Go to twitter.com/ChrisPerfett, PERFETT. It's called the 438 podcast. It's our pilot episode. It's a perspective episode. It's kind of an overview of everything, but it is something we've been working on for several months. And it is a story Jerry's been wanting to tell for years. It is called, if you're not familiar with it, there were a lot of hotlines in Detroit in the 90s. So it is a story about Detroit. There were a lot of hotlines in the 90s for various things like music, for entertainment, and for most of all for pro wrestling. And Jerry was part of a group of kids who grew up in the 90s who used to call into the hotlines, and they created their own culture around calling into the hotlines and running their own hotlines through hijacking some Ameritech recording devices and setting up their own hotlines. So it's a lot about that and about that culture. And it's also the story. It's also a true crime podcast. It's a story about a guy named ML Curley, also known as Jim Thompson. He was a Detroit News pro wrestling columnist who turned into a massive serial pedophile and was busted for it eventually. And it is a story about him and how he came to prey on a lot of that young community as well. It's a overview podcast, but if we win, we get to basically continue to make the story. So please, by all means, go vote, please. We're one of 10 out of like 1,800 people at this point, and like me and Jerry are like really committed to getting off this ground. Please, I don't beg for anything, but please go vote and listen and let us know what you think and share with your friends.
Both links should be in both the YouTube and the Twitch chat, so make sure you check those out. And yeah, I'll. How long is it until? How long do people have until?
You have until December 8th. So
December
next, not this coming Tuesday, but next Tuesday.
Okay, yeah. So you have a little bit of time, but don't wait too long. We'll probably
don't wait. Just go and click the link right now. Just throw in the vote right now.
Yeah, there you go. Do that. Support Pride of Detroit. Support our awesome community. Support local Detroit stories because it's awesome. All right.
No, it is a story about Detroit, and it's something I think has just been not told. And yeah, it's one of these things Jerry fills me in on. It just blows me away every time. So,
all right, y'all. We will see you on Wednesday. You guys have a good night. Enjoy the NFC North Sunday night football game, and have a good Monday or something. Bye.